On June 3rd, 2013, the United States Supreme Court handed down a ruling uh, allowing or paving the way for police officers to take a DNA swab from any person who's been arrested. Now, a DNA swab is not a very intrusive um, testing procedure for you as a practical matter. If you're in custody, they're taking your photograph for booking photos. They're taking your fingerprints and they're putting them in national databases. And the DNA swab, it's not like they have to take any blood or anything from you. They take what looks like a little Q-tip. It's a long Q-tip, and they put it on the inside of your mouth, and then they send that, and that has your DNA on it. It takes just a few moments. It takes about as quick as it would take to fingerprint one of your fingers. What this does, though, is allows the federal government to maintain a database of everybody's DNA. And so it can be a scary thing for people, especially as we look at our rights being taken away from us one at a time. This is normally, when I was a prosecutor before this law came around, if I wanted to get someone's DNA for purposes of an additional investigation and they were under arrest, they hadn't been convicted of anything, they were just under arrest, I would have to get a court order. And we did that in certain situations. And what we had was a neutral and detached judge reviewing a affidavit written by either by an officer, maybe reviewed by a prosecutor also, that requesting the judge to order this person to give their DNA sample up. And if they didn't, they'd be held in contempt of court, or they could be held down and be done with force. So now that sort of element of review, of oversight, has been removed. And you have a police officer who gets to make the decision on their own whether someone has been arrested for a crime that's considered a serious or violent crime, and whether or not that needs to be done. So does that mean that on a little municipal court case where you've been charged with resisting arrest, is that or obstruction, or maybe a municipal battery case? Does that mean that the officer then gets to take a DNA swab, or is it only if it's in a county court or in a district court? Does it have to be a felony? Or what happens if it was just a DUI and you have an officer who has an experience with DUIs where they think that DUIs are violent crimes? Maybe they think that they're intentional crimes. I've heard a lot of officers and prosecutors describe drunk drivers as it's no different than walking down a street, pointing a gun, and shooting blindly into the night. And they firmly believe that. So if you have somebody who thinks that way and they have someone arrested for a DUI, can they then take a DNA swab? So I think that right now the Supreme Court has paved the way for police officers to have a lot more power and discretion than they normally would have. So then the net effect of all this is the police then have this database, and the prosecutor is going to tell you that this is a fantastic thing, that they're going to be able to solve all of these unsolved crimes from the past. And I've had plenty of clients that have been that have found themselves in the crosshairs of something like this when they're arrested for a small crime and DNA is found or taken and they're linked to another crime. On the other side, as a prosecutor, I was able to benefit from that, where I prosecuted people and sure enough their DNA linked them to unsolved crimes, specifically, and sometimes most troubly, rapes that had been unsolved for years. And now you were finally able to put a name and a face to this awful event that had happened in somebody's life. So I think that the public is going to be, in general, very conflicted about this. But what privacy have we given up in order to solve these crimes? And the dissenting opinion in the United States Supreme Court case was very concerned with this, and they didn't think that solving crimes was worth risking our privacy. And the other question is, where is this information going to be stored? I don't think that you can be living in this day and age when you haven't received some letter from a bank or some institution stating that someone's laptop was compromised and your information was on there, including social security number, a bank account, credit card numbers. Don't worry though, it's all safe. We've got it under control. And imagine what's going to happen now with your DNA. That's a blueprint for you, for everything inside you. It's not just what's on your fingerprint or how you look up here, but that's a blueprint for your entire genetic makeup. And so having that sort of information stored, where is it going to be stored? Who's going to be responsible for having it stored? What are the sanctions if that information is released? What happens if the government wants to release that information, redact all of the names so it's a blind study, but release it to different drug manufacturers so they can conduct tests on this DNA that you didn't consent to them doing? So there's a lot of questions that still remain, and it's very brave new world, I think, for us to now have a situation where DNA can be extracted from you at the discretion of a police officer without the intervention or oversight of a neutral and detached judge or magistrate.